Alright, line tracing, ray casting, and let's start off with just a very simple world. And here we are with our little player start, okay? And I want to look at something. And we'll just start off with the idea of, is this thing, are we looking at it, are we not looking at it? I just want a yes or a no. And let's do a check for that. Alright, so I'm just going to center it out, maybe make it just a little bit bigger. Okay, so here's our cube, and it's called cube. Normally we do this in a pawn blueprint, but I just want to show you how simple this is to get going. The pawn, our level blueprint, the reference to our pawn camera is actually by getting the get player camera manager. Just get our camera. So what are we doing? We're line tracing. We're going from a point A to a point B. Okay. So first of all, we need to know where point A is. The point A is where our camera is, right? So that would just be getting our world location. So I want to get world location. All right. And then we need to know where the thing is we're looking at. So we need to know which way we're rotated. So we want to get actually our rotation as well. Get world rotation. And what part of that rotation do we really want? We want what's called the forward vector. And that's how basically we're going to do a line trace. We're going to go from our location out to, well, how far out we're going to go. Well, right now we're inside of a sky sphere, so everywhere we go we're going to be seeing things because we're inside of a mesh. So we want to limit how far we're going to look. I'm going to do this by multiplying by a number. In this case, we're going to do 1,500 centimeters, which will basically look to the edge of the little platform I'm on. And then let's bring in the line trace. We're going to do line trace by channel, which is visibility. We're just going to be looking at things that are visible. And here you see we have a start and an end. Our start is here, where we are, and we're going to look down this way from the start, which means that we're going to add these two numbers. This little simple vector math gets us a line trace, or what's known as ray casting. Okay? So how do we do this? Well, right now we're going to do it on event tick. We're just going to look every frame, and I want to look at it. I want to do a debug draw so I can see this line. I want to actually see this invisible line. And there we go. This is going to be called line trace. Let's do it. See that? Now we're looking at things all around. This is our line trace. Now if I can move around, see all the places I've been. So this is like what the cameras are doing inside of the mocap studio, right? They're like doing this line trace and looking at things and stuff. Pretty cool, right? So we've established that the debug draw for line trace is probably the coolest thing we've done all semester so far. So now I want to get some of this information from this line trace. I told you it like gives you so much information. Well, what kind of information does it give us? Well, let's see what it gives out. First of all, it's going to give us a Boolean. Yes, it's hitting something. No, it's not hitting something. Okay, and then it's going to give us all sorts of information about the object we're hitting. So there we go. This is everything we can get from a line trace. We can get how long we've been looking at an object, where that object is, where the line trace is ending, where the point B is ending, the impact point on the object. That's the relative location on the object to the edges. Like if we're at the center, we're looking at impact point of 0. When we get to the edge, the number starts increasing either way we go. We have normal, which is which way it's rotated towards us. Impact normal, which is kind of the same thing as impact point. What the actor's name is, what the component's name is, what the bone name is. So let's go ahead and just like print string and kind of get an idea of what this data looks like. We're looking at location, by the way. I didn't say that out loud. So, what is location? Well, that's where the box is. Here's where the floor is. We're getting X, Y's, and Z's. That can give us a lot of information. That's cool. Let's add a couple more objects in here and see if we can get the names of the actors. So we got a cylinder, a box, and our sphere. Let's get out the actor right here and say get display name, which means it's going to give us a name that it's called inside the outliner. And there we go. And let's see what we're looking at. Who's in our play? Well, we got Mr. Cube, we got Mr. Cylinder, we got Mr. Sphere, and we got the floor, right? And if I change the names in the outliner, those names would be different as well. Cool. We're already kind of seeing how cool this is, but we're going to make it do even cooler things in a second. Okay. What's next? We're going to also see that. Let's see. Well, let's go ahead and start making this a little bit more controlled. So right now we're just kind of spraying this event tick, so it's like, you know, whatever, 90 frames a second or whatnot. But now, since we have the VR thing set up, let's kind of do it with the controllers, right? And let's start, instead of raycasting from our face, we can raycast from the controller. So we now have a better tool to use, okay? I'm going to just leave this here, but it can't hurt for us to kind of start from scratch with that stuff. No harm in doing it again. I should have a pawn. Here we go. Here's our jousting pawn from before. And I'm going to make it player 0, which already is, and this pawn will no longer be making a line trace, and this is going to be making a line trace. This is how you would do it more properly. Just want to show you how easy it was to prototype getting camera data. So let's stick with event tick for right now, and we're going to, instead of using the camera, we're going to get, let's say, the right motion controller. And then as we did before, get world location. Get world rotation. Get the forward vector. Extend it out only 1500 centimeters by multiplying by a float. My bad. Multiplying by a float. 1500. And then let's do a line trace. Channel. And let's basically do the same thing we're doing with our screen, but do it with our controller. Vector plus vector, vector. There we go. Cool. And it's on the event tick. So now, let's put my VR hat on. When I'm in here, right now we have these controls. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see just this red thing, but let's like snazz it up a little bit, okay? First, I got to show you guys a new kind of material. Has anyone here ever had a poster on their wall? What's a famous kind of poster that people put on their walls?
Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn. Okay. So let me give us our wall. There we go. It's got a window. There's our college dormitory. And let's go into the wild blue yonder and look for Audrey Hepburn. Which one are you specifically thinking about? Okay, you knew what I was going to ask for. Okay. Which one is that? Is that, do you see that one here? Is that this one?
Yeah.
All right, so this is Audrey Hepburn. This is Breakfast at Tiffany's. It was a movie inspired by a song, basically from the 90s. Just trying to make you angry. All right, I'll bring that in. Desktop, there she is. Great. And I will then make a material out of it and move it over to my materials. So what we're going to do today is make a different kind of material called a decal. And a decal, right here, if I change it from surface to a decal, is how you do like posters. It's how you do stains. It's how you do like blood splatters and that kind of stuff on walls. It's when you don't want to texture an entire piece. You just want to put certain kind of things there. People sometimes use it for making shadows as well. If you're playing a video, you can play a video and it'll give you a video shadow on the ground. And you can place it wherever you want to. So let's get a decal right here. And let's put our poster on our wall. You can already kind of see what's happening here, right? Let's add in Audrey. And let's make it a little smaller. And why can't we see anything? Well, because it's actually a decal. You see it has a volume. It's actually three-dimensional. And I just need to find out the orientation. And I got some weird rotations going on, so let's make it 0, 0, 0, and rotate it around just once. There we go. So that's got some sort of effect on its own, right? The rotating poster effect. Great. So now we have a poster of Audrey on our wall. So I'm going to take this idea, but I'm going to turn it into a spray painting. All right. So we're going to spray paint Audrey Hepburn all over the wall. It doesn't come off right, but so in our hit location, our break hit results, we have a location in here, and at that location we want to place a picture of Audrey Hepburn. Okay, but I only want to place it if it's on an object. So I'm going to use this hit result to give me a branch. And so right now it's just saying if it's hitting something, place it. But it can also be if I'm only hitting one object, right? Then it places it. We'll do it first this way just so we see that it works. We are going to spawn a decal at a location. What's the decal? Well, it's Audrey. What's the size? Let's just say 5 for right now. I don't really know. It's centimeters. 5, 5, 5. What's the location? What's the rotation? I think that we use the impact normal. There we go. And let's see what happens. So right now it's going to be every tick off of our motion controller. Save all just in case it crashes. And now let's turn off that debug draw. I'm going to do two things actually. It's working, but I'm going to take off the debug draw so I can just see the poster. And I don't really want it to be every frame. I have all these buttons. Let's start using some of our buttons. Okay, so I want it to be. I want to use a thing called a gate. Right, it's a flow control device. So we can still use our event tick, but we're only going to open it when our motion controller right trigger is pressed down, and then when it's not pressed down, let's close it back up. All right, and we'll start closed. So now I've got like a water gun. Not pressed. Pressed. Little 5 centimeter tall Audrey Hepburn posters. And see how they're rotating to fit the shape, the rotation of the floor, so you can actually see the poster. Just call me Shepherd Fairy. Here we go. So that's fun, right? But wait, there's more. So we were, that's some cool painting. But I also can do other things. I don't know if you saw all the different spawns. I'm going to kind of save this for later. We'll come back to this. But there's other things we can spawn when we are doing a trigger. And in fact, at this point, I just want to have when I'm pressing the button. And what we want is, let's go ahead and spawn a emitter, so a particle system, and I'll use explosion. And where we're going to do it? Well, we're going to do it at the location, at the impact normal. That's actually going to be weird because it's going to end up like changing this explosion, so it's like coming off sideways sometimes. But we'll see it because it can be funny. And then what happens when things explode? Well, they also make a noise. So we're going to make a sound at a location. There's a location right there. What's the sound? Explosion number 1. I think the audio will probably go to my headset, so I might be able to change that. You guys can hear it, right? All right, cool. All right, so now let's see if we now have something cool going on with this. Could you hear that? It went back to my headset. I think I would have to close and open up Unreal again. You have to trust me that it sounds amazing. But what we have now is all right, so now we have an explosion. But what doesn't seem right about that? Because if we have an explosion, you just expect the things to go flying off, right? Like we should be able to play like a game of pool this way, right? We should be able to. I'm going to kind of hedge my bets and actually make a blueprint real quick. That's just a sphere. Blueprint, actor, BP, sphere. And I'm going to put a sphere in there. Nothing special. So you guys just get to hear the fire. That's all. Alright, and let's put the sphere in there. But what do we have to do with the sphere? We need to simulate physics. Alright. Then, I should compile. Then inside of our pawn, also at this location, we are going to apply radial damage. Right? And what is our base damage? I don't know what a unit of damage is. I honestly don't. I just like a lot of damage, so I'm going to put like 1,000,000. Alright? I want something cool to happen. Radius. I want it to be very precise with my damage. I want it to be just like very much like a localized damage. So I'll do like 50. And then where's that origin? Well, here again, that's that location data. Well, let's see what happens. All right, Mr. Sphere. All right, so everyone's like let down now. Like, why didn't it go flying away? Because it's actually the default mass is huge. It's like over 100 kilograms. So I'm just going to, just for the sake of having fun, give it a very small amount. And let's see. Huh. That's funny. Let's see what happens. Let's see what I did. Thought that was going to work. Set simulate physics. Mass is low. Gravity is working. Okay. It's movable. There's no errors that I can see. Let's go back to the blueprint and see if we're doing it at the origin. I guess maybe we need a little bit more damage radius. And then, how many is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 100 million. I feel like I shouldn't have to go more than that. Maybe just the radius would be enough. And then I'll just put like a regular sphere in here too, just not a blueprint. And just make sure that one's simulating physics and is only 2 kilograms or something. Save all. There we go. I just didn't save, that's all. So now we have our pool game, or pinball, or something like that. Right? So that's super fun. I am going to take this one step further, and I'm going to make a new blueprint. Called BP Ball Drop. And in here I'm going to take just a volume, like a box collision. Doesn't matter what. Just a volume. And I'm going to squeeze it down and make it big. How big? I'm not quite sure until I bring it into my world. So let's bring it into the world. Seems like that's pretty good size. Bring it up. And now this actually could be a little wider. Now here, there we go. What I want to do is get my bounds of this box. Get box extents. Get rid of the edges. That's not what I want, is it? No. I want to get bounds. There we go. Get the component bounds. And then I want to get random. I want to random point and bounding box. There we go. From origin to origin to extent. So I'm going to get a random point inside the box, and then I want to spawn an actor from class. And let's open up this transform. We want it to be no rotation. Yeah, there we go. Take that off there. So we're going to randomly spawn those BP spheres. On event tick. But I don't want it to be like every frame. That's going to be way too much. So what I can do with event tick, once I hook it up, is I go to the settings. How do I say, where's the settings? Let's say, boom. Alright, so I can actually change what my tick interval is. Right now it's every frame, but right here I could say, oh, I only want it every 5 seconds now. So I've changed like what the definition of event tick is now. And so now, wait for it. Hit the Oculus button. Alright, so now we've got a game. I can move my guy a little further back and move the box a little further this way. And to have just a slight bit more fun, let's go to materials, and we'll make a new material for the sphere. Do a random, and I want to make a yeah, we got time. I'm going to make a what's called a material parameter collection. So we've done scalable parameters before, but they're just for that one material. What we want to do is, like, what if you wanted all your objects to have a parameter that would change? Your whole world became emissive at one time. Your whole world became saturated at one time. This is how you can make a collection of parameters that could be shared across all your materials. I actually had a game where the whole thing widened out at the end, and that was just, driving an additive scalar vector. It was in this material parameter collection, and then this is just our narrative VR one. And you can have a bunch inside of here. You kind of make a bunch. Start with either vectors or scalars. Actually, let's make a vector because we're doing color, and it's gonna be called, well, it's gonna be called color. So if I go back into Rando, for my base color, I can now choose a collection parameter. And which one? The one called color. And then a base color. And then what's cool about that is that we have the ball drop is dropping the spheres, but our spheres don't exist until they're being spawned. And so on event begin play here, we can set a vector parameter value on a material collection instance. That's wordy, I know, but what it is we can check that collection, the color, and what's the parameter value. We're going to do, this is a color. We can split it up and see an RGB and A, and now we can say random float and range. What's the range? 0 to 1, and let's just repeat that. Alright, so every time it spawns, it's going to have a brand new color as well. I'll save all. Actually, I should probably apply the material to it first. Let's go find it, select it. Rando. We can give it an initial value if we want to. And add it on. Oops. That's not what I meant to do. Rando. And bring it on. So now, every time they drop, they're new color. Or they should be. Oh, they're changing each time? That's funny. That's a mistake. I just don't know how fun that is until you do it. I think that what's happening there is, instead of being on event begin play, should happen before. Make instruction script. Let's see if that fixes that. Nope. Oh, it's for the very reason why I said we should use a parameter collection, because it goes to all the different objects. I just kind of defeated myself there. But I guess it proved a point. That was a teachable moment. So instead of using this parameter, I'm just going to use a make my own. That was funny. Literally the reason why I said to use them. We'll convert this to a parameter called color. We don't need this guy anymore. There we go. There we go. Okay. Default value. Okay. There it is. So inside of our sphere, our sphere, it still has BP random on there. Good. But what we're going to do is create a dynamic material instance. Rando. All right. And that can be called dynamic material instance. And then event begin play, we're going to set vector parameter there. And then now our parameter name is color. Let's put that up. I kind of got really distracted by this, but anyway, we're doing it anyway. Let's see if that fixes that. Yeah. So now each one's a new color. Oh, looks like Easter already. Okay, cool. So we've made elaborate things with our right controller, but we haven't actually made anything interesting for our left controller. And we're gonna pay all the money to have two controllers. We should do something with it. And what I want to do is we've already spray painted, but now I want to draw like tilt brush. All right. So we're gonna make a particle system that has either acceleration or velocity. Okay. And to start off with, we need to make a material for that particle system. And it's going to be a ribbon particle. There's like 5 different kinds of particle systems inside of the game engine. A ribbon just emits well, I'll show you just a second actually. There's also a beam which connects 2 sockets, and there's GPU sprites, which are what most of them are. You can also emit particles or meshes as particles. But what we have to do is first of all start off with the particle color. This is just a mandatory thing for it to show up and be able to be dynamic inside of a particle system. And what we do is we then multiply these values into here to make them driven by other data. So I want to actually have a ribbon. Let's put this emissive. So I want it to be white. That's fine. But for my alpha, I want to make it look more like a ribbon. I'm going to do that with a little bit of math. So first of all, we have a UV, which I think I've mentioned before is just a green gradient and a red gradient. To kind of prove that, I can mask out one of them. And if I take off like red, now we have this little gradient, right? But it's a little bit too pronounced. There's not enough of the darker area, so I'm just going to multiply that by, I'm going to take a half of it away. So I multiply it by like 0.5, take it half of it away, and let's see what that looks like. That looks better. That's more like a linear gradient. I will then, I'm going to use a sine function to taper it at both ends. And I'm going to use a power to make it have more contrast. That's a ribbon to me. All right. So this is going to go inside of our translucency. So we just need to multiply by here. All right, and that should be the little ribbon. Great. So we're going to make our first particle system together from scratch, and we'll just kind of go through all the settings logically and make it together. This is called Cascade. This is how you make particle systems. It's really old, actually. It's like 10 years old, and they're replacing it with the next engine version with a thing called Niagara. Not Niagara, Niagara. It is, which will be even better. So that's why I kind of haven't gone through that much. We just like kind of find particle systems and use them. But let's talk about what's happening here and just like deduce our way through making a ribbon particle system. All right, so we're going to start at the top, and the first thing is what type of particle it is. And here's the different kinds. Animation trails are connected to bones and trail off. Beam connect to bones. GPU sprites are like little images. Mesh data is when we emit different meshes. And then we're going to be doing a ribbon, which doesn't have to be connected to any bones. And already you can see this changes the way it looks right here. Can you see that, guys? Okay. All right. So spawn. If you hold down Shift, we hit these little twirls. It'll open up all of them. Shift, boom. We see that we're spawning like 20 at a time. I just know that I want to make it a little bit more consistent and fluid, so I'm going to make it 250. But before we go any further, we can see the velocities that it's going up, and it's also randomly choosing between left and right, and that's really bothering me. I want to really take care of that right now. Let's go to initial velocity, and we'll see that yes, indeed, it's spawning anywhere between 10 and -10 on the left and right. Same thing with the vertical. And then it's going up between 50 and 100. The reason you have all these settings to give so much randomness for particle systems to really make them look more natural to you, so you can't see the patterns inside of them. But for us, we want it to be a constant to make it easy on ourselves. And let's just make it go up like 100 just for right now. And now let's change it to this required thing. Let's change it to our ribbon. Wait for it to figure out the shaders. We have to save it here. There we go. So now we have our little ribbon. And what's it doing though? This last thing is that it's changing color over life. If I look at the graph down here, if I split this little button right here, it'll go into the graph, and I see it is actually tapering it off. We want to draw a consistent line. So I'm going to take that alpha and just kind of come up so that it's consistently at 1. Right? So that's kind of something we would draw. And I want it to be a little smaller, or a lot smaller, with no variation. So let's just make it a constant again, and make it like 5 by 5. Cool. So now we kind of have a ribbon we want to draw. We've gone over color, we've changed the alpha. The velocity, we're going to change in a second. Size is nice and small. Lifetime, I think that we want it to live for forever. And I think if I put 0, it should live forever. I'm not entirely sure. But we'll start off with, maybe we'll just put like a huge number, like 10 million again. Spawn. What is it spawning? It's spawning 250 as its rate. And then it has that material and it's a ribbon. So let's go ahead and throw it into our pawn. With it selected here, and it on our left controller, we're going to bring in the particle system. So this is parented to the left controller, so it'll be everywhere my left controller goes. But I don't want it to be starting on. I want to do the same thing where I turn it on with my trigger. So take this ribbon, and I'm going to make it invisible, and then get motion controller left trigger. And with this ribbon system, what you do with particle systems is you activate and deactivate. I have to spell it right. And deactivate. So when I press the trigger, I'll draw, and I release, I stop drawing. And the one last thing we have to do is have a little faith that it'll work and turn it off. We don't want it to have any velocity. It's a little scary, you know, we're fumbling around in the dark now, we can't see what we're doing. I'll save all just in case everything goes crazy. And I think I knocked it on the ground a second ago too. Over here. Alright. Let's see. It's not doing it just yet. Let's make sure we saved everything. And I'm going to remove that crazy jousting thing in case it's getting in the way. No? Tracked. Do you see it at all? Well, let's see. What could it possibly be? Let's debug this. This is the fun part. Let's put the velocity back on just to make sure we can see it a little better. If we go back in here, we should see it coming right off. So maybe I didn't add it in. There it is. Let's make it visible. Oh, I did visibility. We want it to be visible, but we want it to be deactivated. There we go. Love debugging. So now, just to review, we have a part system that is deactivated and that has activation on the trigger. So now if I go in here, we're now drawing. Be a little smoother. So I'm going to spawn at like 500. And in a lifetime, let's make it a lot more. It's like flying out. That's funny. So what's cool about this is that this could be stored in like a CSV or a text file, and you have like you can actually like draw something and then print it out. It's really interesting behavior. I think I'm spawning too many. But yeah, you can store these in an array. You can play them back so you can draw with yourself. Let's make it go down to 100. That's better. It was just too much. Multitasking. There you go. So, as I said, this is kind of like the last big tech demo. I just wanted you guys to, we haven't really been doing VR in the VR class in a while, and I wanted to show you stuff that's kind of very unique to just doing VR to give you a little bit more tools for, how can you have more reach when you're only you have so much space that you can be tracked in. How can you reach further? And you have this whole way of finding location of just the angle which you're pointing. I hope that you guys thought of other things you can do as we went through this. It's a lot more features than that. So